The views and opinions expressed on Deliberately Linked are entirely those of the host, who are completely responsible for all show content. These views and opinions are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure in any way any kind of condition, or to promote any specific lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or personal practice. Nor is the information presented deemed to be accurate or verifiable.
What is up, Deliberately Linked viewers? Lace them up and lock it in, because on today's show, some have earned it, some have thought it, and some have faked it. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
So what we're doing, Josh and I, we sit around and we think of things that are applicable. We think of things that are relevant. And, honestly, we fell kind of on this topic of confidence. Mm-hmm. And, confidence is really this conundrum of a topic. There's a lot of thought and opinions on it. And I think we're going to stick on this actually for like a mini series.
For sure.
It's going to be a few weeks and we're going to break this down. But, Josh said it, there's varying levels of confidence. Mm-hmm. And I think for all of us, it's a great time, especially that we have the time to reflect and say, where do I fall? Mm-hmm. Because when I think of confidence, some people instantly think of arrogance or cockiness. What I think is healthy self-being.
Right. And,
when we think about confidence, it's not just a mindset. It's also how you treat yourself. It goes down the
self-love, self-care type thing.
Yeah. I mean, you start talking about nutrition, mm-hmm. you start talking about physical fitness, mm-hmm. you start talking about the way you take care of yourself from, a cleanliness thing.
Yeah.
All those things add into here. And then you add in the other sides, right. The good, the bad, the ugly. And it's like, where are the voices coming from? What are you really buying into? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we want to break down today.
Yeah, and like Mark said, guys, there's different areas where confidence is applied in our lives, just like the leadership series that we've been doing. It's too broad of a topic to do it all in one show.
Yeah.
And we are going to make this a great series, but today's focus is truly going to be about confidence as just a topic, guys. And I think a lot of us are going to learn that, walk around on a daily basis, maybe thinking you don't have confidence, guys. I think you're going to step away not only from this show, but this series, that if you change the way that you maybe perceive yourself and your confidence, you're going to realize you have more confidence than you think.
Hopefully.
And that's the goal. And that's the goal.
I just think we're in this time period, when we think of confidence, like when I think of my grandfather was a very confident man. Mm-hmm. He was also very quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
He was one of those, lead by my actions, not by my words. And then now we look at a lot of what I would consider modern confidence, and we see the personas these people put out there. And I'm not saying that they're not confident. What I'm saying, though, is we get stuck looking at the theatrics.
Correct.
And we don't realize that deep-seated foundation of confidence.
Yeah.
And I think for some of us, we feel like if we don't have those theatrics that go along with it, then we're not confident.
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
Yeah. And I think we could all probably think of someone in each of these categories that we know.
Oh,
and
sure.
you might find yourself being one of them.
Absolutely.
Whether it is the good, the bad, or the ugly.
And honestly, I don't care where you fall in the good, the bad, the ugly. We kind of titled it that way because one of my favorite movies is Clint Eastwood. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. But when we break this down, you understand why it's titled that way. And it doesn't matter where you fall. All of these areas you can improve on. Like just because you're in that area now doesn't mean you have to stay there.
Yeah.
So I think for like us and for me, I will say this. I have been in all these areas.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I think there's still times I find myself in these areas.
I know I do.
So it's one of those things where obviously your goal would be to be the good.
Yeah.
And if you can do that 100% of the time, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I think everybody will find themselves having moments of bad and ugly.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But on the show, we're about improving every day.
For sure. And Mark's right, guys. We do want to be in, quote unquote, the good category of confidence, but the bad and the ugly, they do have a negative connotation to them. And as we shared about those, there are going to be areas of confidence that you don't want to find yourself in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think a lot of us are going to be able to, depending on our career or where we're at in our life, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think there's going to be areas that you find maybe falling into that category of the ugly is at a right time to do it, maybe because it's, fake, but in the sense that, we all know some individuals fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
And I think there is a level of, man, if you can't deep down find that confidence, at least being able to put something on the surface. And we're going to talk about the negative sides of that, but being able to put something on the surface it might just be enough to gain repetition.
Yeah.
and falling into that category of eventually the good. And next thing you know, you're like, whoa, I am confident actually.
But see, when I was preparing for this podcast, I thought of fake it till you make it. I know we did a show on that, and I don't always look at that as a negative thing. I
Right.
think for some people that's your initial motivation. But I also think when we compared it to this, it's like, okay, are we being hypocritical? My answer would be no, because I think what it is you have a confidence in yourself to be successful.
Yeah.
Okay. You may not have, and we'll get to this in a later show when we start talking about life experience and situational, but you don't have the experience to per se be super confident in what you're trying to accomplish. It's going to take time.
Right.
But that's where the fake it till you make it comes in. But
Correct.
if you don't have that foundation of self-belief, that healthy self-belief, then even faking you make it, it's a waste of time.
Yes.
You know, and I honestly think for a lot of us, we look at life and we all throw it into one box, but it's really not. I mean, like, me, I'm a retired individual with a family, but that doesn't mean that encompasses my entire life. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I work with Josh on some things, as a supportive role. I mentor with other people. So all those are different areas. And in those areas, at any point in time, I could be good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can tell you right now, I know there's times as a father that I've been the ugly.
For sure.
I know as a husband, I've been the ugly.
I think we hope probably all can say that we've.
You know what I'm saying? So just because you may find that title fitting in one aspect of your life doesn't mean it goes across the board. But this goes back to what we say all the time. Self-reflection is a positive thing when you're doing it with the point and the focus of improvement.
Yeah.
And that should include and encompass all your areas of life.
Yeah, and as we start diving into the show, I think really the question of the day is, why do so many, if not all of us, want confidence? And really how this show got put on, my heart and mind. Ashley and I were enjoying, this past Saturday. So today's the 8th Wednesday. So whatever the day would have been Saturday, it was
Gorgeous.
a gorgeous day. And Ash and I were sitting out on the deck, and we were just, we had a pizza night, pizza and wine. It was beautiful. And we got to talking, and we're just talking about some upcoming endeavors that her and I are taking on, and just the business ventures and visionary meals and how everything's going on right now. And she just randomly kind of asked the question through all these endeavors and things that we're talking about doing as a couple. She goes, where does this confidence come from? Why are you so confident? And I got to thinking, and I told her a lot of things that we're going to go into this series about. But at the same time, on that hand, I sent it over to Mark, and he's just like, yeah, let's talk about why so many of us want confidence and truly what confidence is.
Yeah.
And diving into this show, guys, like we have already said, there is the good side, the bad side, and the ugly side. But ultimately, confidence obviously makes us all feel good, and we all want to strive to do that on a daily basis. But I think a lot of us, like we have already said, end up being maybe cocky about it. We're baseline, we're shallow, okay, and or we're fake, misleading, and we can cause harm. And I think this is just a great time, and just the world that we live in, to kind of go over something like this, because I think a lot of us need confidence in a time, especially like this.
Well, there's so many things going on, and I always remember this conversation. My sister-in-law, she was older than Heather and I growing up. Obviously, she's Heather's older sister, and she always used to say when we were younger, Heather and I dated when we were teenagers.
Yeah,
she always thought I was a very cocky individual, and I always balanced the cocky and the confidence fence line. I mean, I balanced it barely, but for me, what it was is I always had a self-belief that no matter where you put me, I would work hard enough to succeed. Not always saying I would be the best, but I would succeed.
Yeah.
So some people looked at that and said, hey, you're just super cocky. Where in turn, I just had enough confidence in myself that I wouldn't quit.
Yeah.
When we think about what is confidence, like a lot of people, they take confidence and they take it on the face value and they assume, this is absolutely what it is. But really, it's deeper than that. I mean, it's a very deep self-belief in oneself that is true. Like in your mind, it's completely true.
You have to believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not given to you by someone else.
No.
It's literally between you and yourself, and it's that self-belief.
Now we'll get into this again into the series, but it can be taken away
100%,
from other people.
100%.
It can be taken away, but I like that. I like what you said there, Mark, because so many people do grow up, and I think I even fell into that category at one point in my life, and maybe still do. The assumptions of others about myself, they're going to be, man, Josh, you're cocky. And how common is the answer? Like, no, I'm just confident.
100%.
I'm just confident.
You see it all the time.
You see it all the time.
You see it all the time. But the way I separate the two and distinguish the two of them, someone who is authentically confident, and authentic is necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, is also very humble.
Correct. Yes.
Because confidence is humbling experience. Because you have to be willing to humble yourself and say, this is now outside of my scope. It takes confidence to admit that.
For sure.
It takes enduring, authentic self-belief to say, I'm now out of my scope. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go there and build more confidence, but it takes you first to check yourself.
Correct.
That, to me, is where we start breaking down confidence at its purest point.
Yes, and more so, Mark, on the good side of the confidence, guys. And it's a fine line of, like, maybe you're sitting there saying, well, you're just self-interpretation. But if you want to think of yourself in the good category of confidence, like Mark said, humbling almost covers the whole category of good confidence, because it can be broken down into so many different stages of, able to, being humble, kind of just to elaborate more on what Mark's saying there, is able to evaluate where improvement is needed. Okay.
Correct.
If you don't fall in, if you fall into the bad side of confidence, right, you're more likely to point out and point fingers, let's just per se, for lack of better terms, at individuals for what went wrong, instead of maybe holding yourself accountable, right?
Yep.
Or saying, hey, that's on me, guys. All right. I know I run this joint around here. I need to improve in this situation. Okay. And having that confidence, knowing when you're saying, hey, this failure in whatever part of the team or household or business, the failure that occurred, and having that confidence saying, no, I made that mistake, but that confidence comes from, I made the mistake because I know I can make it right.
That's right. That's right. And I'll dive way deeper when we get into the bad and the ugly about some of those things you just said. But I think the focus for a lot of people, and the Mayo Clinic actually did a really great report on this, talking about healthy self-being and healthy confidence. And one of the first things they said is people with real healthy self-being and confidence have pure motivations.
Yeah,
and when I read that, I was like, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because when you think of a pure motivation, that means that motivation is not hinged on somebody else's opinion, or it's not hinged on what you expect to occur at the end. It's truly, this is what motivates me. This is what I feel passionate about.
Sure.
So it's not per se to be infected by any other outside source. It's truly what is inside of you. And I'm like, that makes so much sense when you break that down in the way you view yourself. If you're pursuing something like that, you will have that confidence and that healthy outlook at it because it's pure.
Yes, correct.
Hasn't been tainted yet.
Right, and that's the good side of it. What you do on a daily basis, you don't need the approval of outside sources, guys. And that's where it really starts to separate itself from the bad and the ugly. These individuals are constantly putting something out, whether it's fake, whether it's misleading, whether it's dry, shallow, you name it. They're constantly putting something out to be able to receive, almost false gratification for individuals around
100%.
them, because they're trying to boost their self-esteem,
100%.
And
cover their weaknesses.
And almost convince them that they are something that they are not. But on the good side of it, you don't need that. You walk around on a daily basis saying, hey, I'm confident in what I do. All right, I'm going to bring this to the table, and it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to admit that it didn't, and we're going to make it right.
I thought the other they used two other things too. They said true confidence is pro-social and non-egocentric. And I was like, I wonder what they mean by pro-social. So I just kind of read into it a little deeper. And what they did is they found that people who are very healthily confident in the good aspect want to see other people have same success.
Yeah. Okay.
And the not being the egocentric means is they're not intimidated by other people's success because they've realized that this is mine, that is theirs, and they love seeing success across the board, no matter whose it is and what they're doing. As long as they're following that pure motivation and as long as they're being successful, they're their greatest cheerleader because they themselves know the importance of that. So instead of a competition and instead of a threat, they actually support it. And, I think about some of the most successful people that I know. I mean, multimillionaires or, even people that have achieved at the highest level in athletics, they are some of the most positive speaking, encouraging people you ever be around.
Yeah.
Because A, they know what it takes. They know what that passion and pure motivation is. And so they love to see it and encourage it in others.
Yeah, I love
and I'm
that.
like, that is so true.
Yeah, no, and that's what studies have shown, just to kind of elaborate that, like, confident people typically will show maybe a greater income because they're of their confidence. And again, that's where it can go back and forth from maybe quote unquote going to your head and what kind of confidence you start to fall into. But a lot of that confidence, I like how you said that, guys. I think, Mark, if our viewers could go back, hit that 15-second mark on your podcast app there and go back like 30, 45 seconds and replay what Mark just said, guys. I think that's extremely vital and important to this topic and understanding what it is.
Well, as we start to straddle going into the bad and the ugly, I just had a great conversation with somebody that, I talk with regularly, and he's an entrepreneur and he's a business owner and a very confident guy, very confident in his skills. And he's very good at what he does. And we had the long conversation, and you brought it up, long-term financial gain. People with confidence tend to show higher earnings.
Correct.
And I told him, but the difference between people with confidence, it's usually long-term, it's sustainable. When we start talking about bad and ugly, they may have success, it's just not sustainable.
It's short-term.
Yeah.
It's short-term.
And I told him, I said, one of the greatest things about confidence is that realistic approach and patience. And I know we touched on patience heavily last week.
Great show.
But I told him all that is part of that, because if you're willing to be patient in who you are, what that's exuding in yourself is, I'm patient because I know what I can accomplish. It's people who are trying to rush because they're not confident. They feel like I need to grab it now. If I don't get it now, it'll never happen again.
Well, they have a piece of success and they're like, okay, this is few and far between. Let me run with this, okay? And that piece of success is going to run out because it's not authentic, all right? They're not chasing the next step of whatever the next step of success is, and it's just they're running blind essentially.
Absolutely.
They're running blind of like, man, I don't know how this happened. And it is exactly.
And fear and confidence do not belong in the same, category.
They can't.
But there's so many people out there that will go out and they'll do this whole they'll put on the fake front. And they'll go do their thing, and you skip right to ugly because that's what these people do. They'll put on a fake front and they'll do it in order to chase success or monetary gain or whatever that they're looking for, not realizing by doing this is you're actually putting other people in harm because these other people are going to put their trust in you. They're going to put their faith in you. They're going to follow you down wherever you're going. And the reality is they don't know that you don't know. They don't know that you're not equipped and prepared for this, but they're buying into this fake shield that you've put up. And when it all explodes, it's not just you that fails, it's all the other ones that you drug along.
And that's the scary thing living in the society that we live in, guys. And Mark and I haven't brought up the word social media in a long time, but that's, I fear and I hurt for a lot of the individuals that are following certain people based off of their bad or ugly confidence. And it's not authentic, it's not real, but you see them posting up this lavish lifestyle and saying, them walking around with their chest pumped out of what they maybe are writing out that they did that was a short-term success, or putting on, where it gets ugly, putting on a front for individuals. And that's what scares me. There's so many fake podcasts out there. There's so many poor accounts to follow on social media of individuals putting this facade out there for trying to gain followers, all right, trying to gain to offer wisdom or insight to these kids, and what these kids are doing, they're saying, okay, they did it. It means I can do it. And 5 months down the road, they're like, man, why am I not seeing anything when my favorite icon is telling me to go do this? And it's because
it's not real,
because it's fake, and
it's
that's
not
what's
authentic.
scary.
And you're right. There are, and unfortunately, podcast is a very watered down area, and we say that being podcasters. But the truth is, a lot of these podcasters are in it for the hype. They want the reaction, and they think that's how I'm going to get it. So they'll literally say whatever with no fact checking, no form of research, because they want the shock factor.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're about. I'm on here because not only am I educating myself, and I know you do the same thing, but we want other people to kind of just be inside of our heads.
For sure. Well, you said it before. We'll continue to say it, guys. We're not reinventing the wheel.
Never.
You come to our. This is why, guys. Our views have spiked tremendously. Our following has gone up a humbling amount, and I'm so thankful for all of you guys. So, shout out to everyone. But Mark and I are very confident in the fact that is because we are ourselves and we are vulnerable. And I'll tell you where I failed. I'm telling you where I'm struggling. I'm going to tell you where I succeeded. And it's real. You're following this journey with us, A, because we're either going through it, or B, we have been there and it's completely authentic. It's real. We're not hiding anything. And
No, the only thing we offer is a different perspective.
Exactly.
Because our perspectives are constantly changing.
every day.
And so many people find themselves in the tunnel vision and they stay there. Well, I think perspective and the willingness to change and the willingness to be vulnerable, it is that is a part of authentic confidence, because you're saying I can admit these things because I know I can improve on them.
Right.
I can admit these things because I know I'll commit to making them better. You know, we can do all those things. I think part of the society's issue is honesty. And you say, well, how are you talking about honesty and confidence? Well, they go to hand in hand, because if people are not being honest with you, it's hard for you to be authentic in your confidence. Yeah. And that brings up bad. You're like, well, what's the difference between bad and ugly? Well, I think there's two major differences. In bad and ugly, there's ignorance. Because people that may be bad at confidence, they don't know.
Right.
They just don't know they are.
Yeah.
You know, they're either reading all the comments on their social media things, or they're seeing all the likes they have or the followers they have, and it's giving them this false sense of confidence, like what they're doing's right. And that's just not realistic. But then what you have too is,
and with that being said, Mark, a lot of times, whether if it is based off those likes or those comments, they dramatize them in the sense that a little to them is a lot.
100%.
And they don't almost, there is no realization of, man, I'm only getting this much support on this topic, and they what little bit they just run with it.
Absolutely.
And like you said, that's the ignorance and being blind to really what your community, your following, your surrounding people are trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And like, hey, we don't support this. We don't feed off of this. We're not motivated by this. It's false. It's fake.
But we've come to the point where if we're honest with them, it's constantly a negative.
Yeah, for sure.
Where really, by not being honest, you're creating a negative impact in their life. You know, and especially for people who find themselves in the bad confidence area, which you're there out of ignorance, and it's because you're listening to too much of the outside noise and you're not listening enough to yourself, and you're not reevaluating yourself honestly. So it's like I'm not as hard on those people, because when I think of ugly, you know you're not confident.
Yeah.
You know that you're not equipped and you're not ready.
Right.
And the other side of that, what really makes those two things different is all three of these create some form of a product. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, you create some form of a product. The only thing that separates the bad product and the ugly product is in the ugly product, you know that you're creating a bad product. You're very self-aware, and this is very self-motivated.
You mean the ugly you're saying?
Yeah, bad production.
Yeah.
Where in the bad place of having bad confidence, you're not aware that you're in an unhealthy place. You're not aware that what you're doing is really, built on a sand foundation.
Right.
You're not really aware.
Yeah, you're just.
But in ugly, you're fully aware, and you don't care when it crumbles.
Yeah, and that's where, like you said, it can be very misleading and harm individuals
100%.
down the wrong path, and that's Mark and I talked about this show briefly last night, and I was just like, and he said the same thing. Man, I can think of someone for each category.
Absolutely.
And
I can think of times where I fell in each category.
For sure, no doubt. Yeah, I'm not saying I don't either.
And when I look at this, I apply it to my life. I think of especially, Josh and I were men, and as men we've worked with countless young athletes. And if you're projecting bad or ugly confidence, we're ruining these kids. Yeah. We're setting them up to fail. So it's so important that we have a healthy self-being, so we can project self-healthy beings. And I think as you know, men and women as nurturers and as mothers and women, you know, if you're not being honest with your child or individuals that you're mentoring along the way or you're guiding along the way, you're really doing them harm.
Mhm.
I know it sounds bad to say you're in the ugly confidence zone, but you are, because you know better.
For your child.
Yeah, with your child or anybody that you're
Yeah.
guiding.
Yeah.
If you're not being honest with them and you're not expressing that to them, you're not helping them build confidence. You're setting them up to fail, and you know it.
Yeah.
And that's why when we talk about confidence in general, and I told Josh earlier, you know, it's kind of like a grapevine. If anybody's ever seen a grapevine, I mean, they all just intertwine and they make this weaving passion. That is exactly what confidence is. It's all over the place.
Mhm.
So it's kind of hard to really break it down without having multiple shows and getting specific. But in this show, we wanted to really branch out and say, but here are the areas that we know apply to every situation.
Right.
We know that there's healthy, good self-esteem. We know there's negative self-esteem. And then we know there's the kind out there that you are purposely doing it to misguide others. And that's just, it's harmful. And we see it more and more. And you said it, in this day and age where a lot of people are sitting at home and they're reflecting and they're looking across their lives and where they are, it's super important now that you look at that and you're able to distinguish those and say, where do I need to improve?
Right. Yeah, and I think that's important, especially during this time that, like, it was Mark was talking, is figuring out what area of confidence you fall in, and then the next step, finding a way to get to the good side of that confidence.
Absolutely.
Because I think of myself at times where, you know, I look back at my life, and I'm going to speak strictly business here. There are times where I have had to fall into maybe the ugly side of confidence. Now, it was all with good intentions.
Sure.
Okay, and that's usually the problem between the bad and the ugly. There might be good intentions, all right, and you know, at times in business where, you know, I think of some of the first steps that we've had to do as a company, going to gyms, there's stuff that I've never done, and that's the good side of faking it until you make it, right? That is the good side of you can't walk into a locker room full of athletes, whether you're the coach, whether you're the team leader. You can't walk into a business deal and not show confidence, because guys, I'll take this to my grave. You can walk into any arena like that, and you can fumble over your words. You can say stuff that doesn't make sense. You can sell them the worst product in the world. But if you walk in and say it with confidence,
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee you're going to get the deal. I guarantee
Yeah.
you're going to fire that team up. I guarantee your family will take understanding and take charge. Like, confidence rules the world. Confidence is key.
Well, I'll tell you a great story. Good friend of mine, and I'll name drop him on here because I know he wouldn't care. You know, Corey Gregory. And I
Yeah,
remember,
talk about someone with
I remember
confidence.
early in our relationship, you know, when he was with a company before. He's now with Max Effort. Before he created Max Effort, he created both companies. He's no longer with the original company. He's now with Max Effort. But he had one of the most iconic and legendary sponsorships. He had Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And I remember him telling the story. You know, I was like, how in the world, you know, do you go from this young dude from the trailer to small Pataskala, Ohio, to all of a sudden you're walking into Arnold Schwarzenegger's office?
Right.
You know what I mean? And he tells the story. He's like, dude, everybody's freaking out. He's like, and we literally got 15 seconds.
Yeah.
He's like, you got 15 seconds. He goes, I literally walked in that door. And this is how he said it. I walked in that room like a boss and just threw it on him.
Throw it on them.
And he goes, walk out. Boom, we got a contract.
Yeah.
He goes, I was scared out of my mind.
Hell yeah, you
He
are.
goes, people are ready to throw up. They're nervous. He goes, but when I walked in, I was like, game face, let's go. And so you say to yourself, is that good confidence? No, it's not good
No.
confidence. But what it is, it's layered confidence.
Correct.
He had a belief in his product. He knew his product was right, but he was in an arena he's never been in. It's hard to have confidence in an arena
sure.
you've never been in.
Ever-
But what he did was he depended on the good confidence so that his negative thoughts would be bolstered by that.
Correct. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just maybe it's overconfidence is what some will call it, and which it's not a bad thing, and that's the point that we're making here, guys. If you are, and I mean, my wife, she said it herself. She's like, I don't have confidence, and I'll be the first one to say I could do better myself to build
Sure.
her confidence up, and I think that's where, you know, as this topic really gets nitty gritty, and we'll continue to break it down into this series. of others and the impact of others on
Oh,
confidence and stuff.
situational life experience, all those things apply to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so important to, if you don't find yourself in that good category, forcing yourself, all right? Forcing yourself with again that self-belief, knowing, hey, I can get to that good confidence even if I'm scared. I mean, we've all stepped on stage, right? And a lot of us have spoken in front of people, some a few, some hundreds, some thousands. I know Mark's done thousands of people, and I guarantee you he had butterflies walking out on stage.
Every time. Still nervous. Every
Yeah.
time. Still nervous.
But you walk out there again, like Mark was saying that Corey did. He knew his product.
Yeah.
All right. He believed in his product. So you might not, that's the thing here, guys. You might be sharing something that you don't believe in yourself to share it, right? You have this self-doubt in a sense that, oh, maybe I will fumble over my words. Maybe I won't say what I need to say. But if you can rely on your roots, if you can rely on what you're sharing, okay, and have that belief like, man, I hate talking in front of people, but I know so much about this product, this passion, it fuels me, it keeps me going on a day-to-day basis. If you can rely on that and just stay tunnel vision into that facet, into that arena of, man, I'm scared to death, but I believe in what I'm going to share.
But I also have found, and I have a couple things of encouragement for everybody. If you're one of those people that say, I don't have confidence, I would say you do. But what I would say this, confidence is bred literally from moments. Mm-hmm. It's capitalizing on moments. And it's in those moments of time. Like, prime example, my wife she'll tell you in high school, you call her up to the front of the classroom to talk to the class, she'll pass out.
Right, yeah.
But it's like when she was in college, she's in nursing school, she doesn't have a choice. She had to take a public speaking class. And it was there she proved to herself, I can. Mm-hmm. So you are equipped, but it's those moments and times that maybe, just maybe, you have not had that opportunity to watch that confidence spread itself. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. It will come. But I also say this too, as a Christian man, knowing Josh is a Christian man, and he used the word earlier, overconfident.
Yeah.
I find overconfident never to be a negative, except in those areas where that person has zero humility. Correct. If you have no humility, overconfidence will be a negative. And as a Christian man who I'm very secure with my imperfections, I'm very secure in saying I am a sinner. I'm very secure that Christ had to die on the cross for my sin because I could never pay for that.
Right.
I'm very secure in admitting my humilities and in admitting my sin. So it allows those moments of times where you're like, I can be this confident. Mm-hmm. I can be this confident because I understand if it gets to the point where it's beyond my control, I can step back and say, okay, I've now reached my limit.
Yeah. And I think that's an interesting twist on the show here, Mark, the faith side of it. And I know a lot of Christians that don't have confidence, but I probably know more Christians that do have confidence. And I'm not saying if you're not a Christian, don't misunderstand me here. I'm not saying if you're not a Christian, you can't have confidence. But I do know for a fact that myself, speaking personally, and I know, especially knowing Mark so well, and I think of individuals like my mother, she instills an immense amount of confidence in a lot of avenues of her life.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you for myself speaking, and I'll speak for Mark, and I'll speak for my mother, and I could speak for thousands of others, that when you have a relationship with Christ, that is a whole other area of confidence within its own. Mm-hmm. Because when you have a foundation and a relationship with Christ, guys, and you're actively pursuing that, and obviously we all fail at a daily basis at it. When you are pursuing it, okay, Christ teaches us to love, right? Christ teaches us to be honorable. Christ teaches us to be honest, and Christ teaches us to, like I said, love others, uplift others, guys. And that's explaining the good right there. Being authentic, genuine, uplifting, faith strong, empowering, and motivating others. Christ teaches us to be humble. Christ doesn't teach us to be cocky, right? Christ doesn't teach us to be fake, misleading. And that is an area that I am truly confident that a lot of us that do have a relationship with Christ, I know for myself speaking, that is where I would say most, if not all, of my confidence comes from. Because
absolutely, because that's where your greatest support is.
Correct. And on a daily basis, I'm trying my best. Again, I fail, but trying my best to hold myself accountable to what Christ wants. I want to live like Jesus, love like Jesus, and lead like Jesus on a daily basis.
And that's why when I think of confidence, I constantly find myself, instead of calling it confidence, going to healthy self-being, because healthy self-being means that you have a healthy focus. And when my focus is not on me, my focus is on Him.
Yes.
My focus on what is Christ calling me to do? What is Christ, leading me, and what is His will? When I can separate those two things and know that, and like I said, I am a sinner of all sinners. But when I know at least I'm heading in that direction, I have all the confidence in the world because I know that I'm being led by perfection.
Right.
I'm not perfection, but I'm being led by perfection.
And I think a lot of that confidence or humility comes from the understanding when you do something good, having the perspective, having the knowledge, having the understanding that when I go do something good, that was Christ led.
Oh yeah.
And
oh
that
yeah.
and that helps stop that helps stop being cocky. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And again, Christians, we strive on a daily basis to glorify Christ. If we walk around and be like, man, and walk out of that business meeting that you just closed the biggest deal of your life, or you walk out of a sports arena and you hit a grand slam or you scored the most touchdowns. If you walk around and be like, man, that was me, let's go, that was all my hard work, which your hard work played into that. But if you glorify Christ saying, hey, I could not have done that without Christ by my side, I'm telling you that confidence and that humility will play a bigger role and will become closer and closer to that good.
I would
kind of
even
confidence.
go as far as to say you'll enjoy it more.
You will. You will.
I think like anybody else, growing up, I always loved getting a trophy. I always loved getting any accolades. It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
But what I have found out is when I do it with His perspective and when I know that I'm doing it in His name.
Correct.
And people say, I can't believe that you're saying that athletes can do things in Christ's name. It's not that you're saying He made me hit a home run. No, He gave you drive. He gave you the discipline. He encouraged
focus.
you. He did all those things along the way, knowing that without His encouragement, His focus for you, all those things, you wouldn't have been able to accomplish those things. You're not able to compile the blessings He's given you to be able to have a great moment.
Right.
But so many people get caught up in they need this explicit declaration of achievement to feel like to define them.
Good word.
Guys, that is bad and ugly versions of confidence because that's fake, because that is dependent on what others think of you. When you're in good confidence, you are solely accepting and you find yourself completely fulfilled in only the acceptance of Christ and how you view yourself. That is what I mean is pure motivation and pure healthy self-being.
Yeah.
That's where I want people to be. And I'm sitting here telling you, not saying I'm there. It's something I constantly work on. It's something I'm constantly trying to pursue because that's where ultimate joy is.
Right.
I mean, if we sat back and listened to every negative comment we get, if we sat back and listened to every negative DM we get, we would never move forward because we'd be so focused on, I can't believe that person said it was a horrible show. No, in turn, we're like, I'm sorry you didn't like the show, but really the motivation of that show is nothing what you're saying. I can't control what you hear. I mean, I know what I'm saying, and I had this episode not that long ago, actually 2 days ago. I have been informed that A, I'm a bad whisperer, and B, I don't really have a compassionate tone. I mean, anybody listening, you're listening to my voice. I don't really have a compassionate tone. I can't speak like that. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, you're not really soft spoken.
Yeah, so I can say things that are affirming, and I can say things that are encouraging, and I can say things that are sympathetic. And if you listen to how I'm saying it, it doesn't come off that way.
You're right. I would agree with this.
It doesn't come off that way.
Yeah.
So I can see, and this was brought to my attention, I can see where other people hear that and assume that I'm not being authentic. Because they're like, well, he doesn't sound like he actually means that way. But in turn, I can't change the way I talk.
Well, you're just blunt, straight to the point.
Okay. But on the flip side of that, this goes back to what we always say. You can only control your control. I can only control my speech so much. This is what I was given.
Right.
Okay. So if
To
people
where
don't,
it's still authentic.
yeah. So if people don't choose to hear us and what we're saying, that's a reflection of them. So I tell you, people out there with confidence who are listening to negativity, don't listen to the negativity because you can't control how they hear it.
Yeah.
Just be you, love you,
Right.
be the best you. And if you're out there and you're saying, I have no idea what you're feeling when you talk about this Christ stuff, I'm telling you, pursue Him and He will show you.
For sure. And if you find if you're sitting there saying, man, I do let myself get beat up over comments,
Yeah.
whether it's through online sources or whether it's just, in person and
Family and friends.
and taking, taking everything what everyone says to the heart. Maybe that you start to question yourself where your confidence really does lie. Do you fall into that category of the bad or the ugly? Because if you fall into the category of good, like we said at the beginning of the show, you should be relying strictly off the internal motivation of yourself, okay,
100%.
and thriving off who you are, what you are, and finding that strength through Christ. Because if you aren't finding that strength through Christ, you're going to try to find it through other avenues of life. And we all know we live in a toxic world, and that's more times than not, that's where you're gonna get that feedback, and then you're gonna start getting distracted, and you're gonna take it to heart, and you're gonna be questioning who you are, what you're doing, instead of having that confidence within and saying, no, I don't care what he or she just said. I believe in my craft. I believe in my game. I'm going to go out.
Well, and I'll tell you this, just from a mental health, and I'll leave you guys with this. From a mental health standpoint, strictly, and we talk about confidence, once again, it's the grapevine. It intertwines everywhere. And it's very involved in mental health because people that find themselves in the bad or the ugly category, you know what you're lacking? You're lacking a positive self-worth.
Yeah.
Because what you have is dependent self-worth.
Yes,
It
yes.
depends on the opinions, the views, and the comments of others. And if that's where you find yourself, I'm here to tell you, 100% of the time, you will be let down.
Yeah.
You will be misguided. You'll be probably used,
For sure.
abused,
Yeah.
and all those things will happen to you.
Definitely used, no doubt.
Okay? I promise you that I say that in complete confidence in saying that. And by doing that, you're damaging your own self-worth. So until you can believe in who you are, be comfortable in what you know is healthy and right,
Yeah.
it's going to fail.
Right.
And I think that's why we really want to get on this topic. I know a lot of people are saying, I just don't have any confidence. You do.
You do.
You do. It just hasn't manifested itself. Or
Right.
maybe, I'll be honest, maybe you haven't put enough effort into it.
Yeah, and if you feel like you don't or never have or never will, stick with us on this series. I promise. We're going to continue to do this.
We'll
over
show
the
you how
next,
to apply.
the next few weeks.
Yeah.
We might get interrupted by a guest or a random topic that just comes to our heart. But stick with us on this series. As we continue to break down confidence. And I can almost promise you that by the end of this series, you will either walk away knowing, hey, you do have confidence. You're going to walk away knowing how to find that confidence. All right. And you might even walk away knowing where your confidence has been destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay. And eliminating yourself from those toxic situations
That's a great
will be
point.
the very first step to gaining the confidence that you deserve as a
That
person.
is a great point. And honestly, I mean, you could do a whole podcast on confidence drainers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that
Others
up.
feed into it.
Absolutely. No.
So, guys, that's a great show, and I hope all of you do have confidence. I know, like Mark said, there are a lot that don't.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're gonna play hopefully a vital part into that. And like I said, I hope you guys stick with us. But on that note, let's give everyone a little update on our opinions right now. No, on our opinions of this whole Corona stuff.
Oh,
Mark, I know you've been heavily into it. I promise that we walked
folks,
away
we ain't
from
got
it.
time for what I got to say.
2.5 minutes, guys. What is it? April. We're already in April 8th, and man, day whatever of quarantine. I don't even know. Mark, what are your thoughts? Where are you sitting on
Just
this?
so everybody's aware, I had no idea we were going to talk about this.
Nope,
So
I threw it out.
it's very challenging for me because Josh knows that I literally dive into this stuff heavily.
But Mark, the reason I bring this up, though, I think what we are creating here, this platform, and what our viewers are helping us create here, it's going to be people are going to listen to this show years and years and years from now,
Sure.
and I think it's going to be. I mean, I think about my kids potentially listening to something
Sure.
like this, and so I think it's just a great time to update where we are with things.
I think it applies to what we just talked about for the last 40 plus minutes. Okay. The coronavirus is very real. COVID-19, it's very real. It can be very serious. It obviously can be deadly. But I will also tell you this. This is where confidence is best applied because confidence comes with humility and common sense.
Yeah, I love it.
And I'll tell you the same thing I tell my children. Use common sense. Wash your hands. Don't be doing anything that you would think, hey, why would I be doing that? And, even in the quarantine time, this is a great opportunity. It's a gift. That's how I choose to look at it. That's fine. Because on the flip side, I'll be honest with you. I think most of our listeners, I don't trust politicians. There's not one of them. I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican. And if you read not the news lines and not social media, but if you actually take time to read the political documents, the stimulus packages, you will note very quickly that we are being fed misinformation on both sides, that all the data is not adding up to what they're saying, and that now we're seeing the tug of war in the form of trillions of dollars. So I would encourage people, number one, take opportunity of this time to treat others the way you should always treat others. Okay. Number two, appreciate each other. And number three, live by common sense and not hysteria, because we have been trapped in a pandemic hysteria, is what I call it.
And on that note, I think a lot of us are trying to gain our confidence from our government and different sources out there. So with our topic, guys, find that confidence within, on your own studies, like Mark said, but just finding that confidence with just continuing life. I think so many individuals are stopping life. The pause button. I listened to a show the other day. It was a great show. So many people have the pause button on right now. Unpaused life, guys. Continue to push forward. And for our business owners, I'm not going to go deep into this because I totally could. This is the time where you capitalize. Okay, this is the time. If you're a business owner and you're just sitting back because you quote unquote can't do anything, I'm telling you, you're wrong. And
you can.
in the end of this, you're the one that's going to be left behind. Okay, we will figure out who our real business owners and who our real real entrepreneurs are.
I tell people when these political games end, when they end, okay, it's going to be. Time is going to move at light speed. I mean, from the stock market to business to the economy, it's going to move at light speed. The people that are taking this gift, this opportunity to prepare, those are the people that are going to be moving in light speed. If you find yourself saying, I deserve this break, and you find yourself being lazy and not preparing, and I'm not saying you should not enjoy the downtime.
Correct.
Please do.
Take advantage of it.
This is a time where you're gifted some balance. Let it be.
Yes.
But you should be preparing, because this is going away. This is not going to derail everything. It's going to go away. And when it happens, be prepared.
Yeah. That's good. I love it. All right, gang. You already know Deliberately Linked is on all platforms. All right. Be sure to shoot us a follow, subscribe, give us that 5-star review.
Absolutely.
Positive feedback only, guys. If you got something negative, please shoot it to our email or DMs. We just want to keep that stuff one-on-one communication.
And if you're curious how we are so fueled every show,
yes, you already know.
If you wonder how we have so much excitement and exuberance,
I love it.
Then maybe you just got to get online, visionarymeals.com, and order some of our fuel.
That's right.
And then you can find out where we get all of our spirit at.
That's it, baby. Fueled strong every day. Thank you, Visionary Meals, brought to you by Visionary Meals. And again, Deliberately Linked.